Mariners fans. It is Tuesday, September 20th, and I'm here with Matt to talk a little bit of Mariners. Mariners just wrapped up their series against the Angels, and before that we played the Padres. A little disappointing overall, obviously. We did split with the Padres, which felt just fine. We lost 0-2, but then we won 6-1. I wanted to just kind of do a quick series recap, like really quick, and kind of recognize the MVPs, or at least my MVPs for each series. And so I was looking at the stats, and I have picked for my position player MVP, or my most valuable position player, I picked none other than Julio Rodriguez, who in the winning game had 2 hits, 2 runs, and he started that game off with a lead-off homer. So I picked Julio for my most valuable position player for that series, and for my most valuable pitcher, I got Luis Castillo, who pitched 6 innings, only gave up 4 hits, 1 walk, and got 9 strikeouts. So that was good to see. We got Luis Castillo taking the mound tonight. Can't wait for that. But before we talk about tonight or the future at all, I also want to talk about the Angels series, as painful as it was. We played a 4-game series against the Angels in Anaheim, and we lost the first 3 games. But we came back with a really decisive Game 4 win where we won 9-1. I'm going to give my most valuable position player award to Carlos Santana for that one. I'm kind of, for these 2 series at least, I'm kind of looking at the game we won and seeing who was the most valuable player in helping us get that win. It was definitely Santana, who had 2 hits. Both of them were home runs, and he had 5 RBIs that game. But Ty France was a really close runner-up because he also had 2 hits, 2 runs, and he had 4 RBIs. But got to give it to Slamtana, who had the grand slam and a solo shot later to really pull us out of the pits of losing to the Angels 3 games in a row. And I'm giving my most valuable pitcher to Logan Gilbert, who won that game. 6 innings pitched, 4 hits given up, only 1 earned run, 1 walk, and a career high 11 strikeouts. So that was really good to see Logan being dominant. Matt, haven't even introduced you yet. Of course, the listeners know who you are, but how closely were you following these series? Did you have any closing thoughts before we move on about those 2 series?
I mean, it's been a slow couple series for sure. I was watching the San Diego. I thought those 2 games were pretty fun. It was nice to see them at least split that series. And then the Angels started off nicely because Julio got another leadoff homer, which now I'm seeing he got back-to-back leadoff homers.
That's right.
With a day in between. But that first game, he led off the game with a home run. And it was like, all right, this is going to be fun. And then it was not fun. And then it was Ohtani.
All right.
And then it was another pretty dull game. Very happy to have not gotten swept in that series. Honestly, I probably paid least attention to the win. Mm-hmm. But I was checking in, and it was like, all right, phew, this is going to be a win.
Yeah, I kind of had to watch the win, even though it was kind of a blowout. I had to watch it just to kind of like make myself feel better.
Yeah,
we are still an offensive powerhouse. We can still mash home runs and beat the fucking Angels. But the sweetest thing about that win, which I realized afterwards, is that was the official elimination of the Angels from the postseason.
Oh, damn. That's pretty good.
Yeah. It was set in stone. Angels not making it to the postseason for, I can't remember how many years in a row, but I think they have, like, behind the Phillies and us, obviously, I think they now have the 3rd longest postseason drought. So suck on that, Angels. Yeah. But moving on a little bit, or I guess still looking back, but I wanted to look at a few players. I just noticed that Jesse Winker didn't play the last 2 games of the Angels series. I didn't really hear anything about why. I don't think he's injured or anything.
Yeah, I think I saw Haggerty's starting in left tonight too.
Really? Okay. Yeah. Wait. Is Winker in the starting lineup at all tonight?
I didn't see, but I saw Haggerty in left. He's
Yeah.
he's batting in the 9 hole.
But yeah, I mean, I didn't really didn't really bother me that Winker wasn't in. I'm not at the moment really feeling like much of a Winker believer. But then I looked back and he did play the first two games of the series and he got hits in both of those games. So he's he's still breathing out there.
Yeah, it seems like he has it in him, but
Yeah.
it only comes out in very small spurts.
Yeah, and often when he does get a hit, it doesn't. It feels like it comes in situations where it doesn't really help us out very much.
Yeah,
But the definite downside I've noticed as of late is Mitch Haniger's numbers in September have been pretty abysmal. And I hate to be negative here, but I just want to acknowledge it because we know this isn't Mitch. We haven't really seen the Mitch Haniger that we know this month. When he first came back, I think in August, he looked like himself. He was hitting consistently, and that was great to see. But in September, he is hitting only 174 for 8 hits, and he has 18 strikeouts. So 18
yeah,
strikeouts in 12 games. So I'm trying to send my love to Mitch Haniger. We need him, but I believe that he will figure it out. But just like looking at some of the losses we've had recently, we got to point to like, you know, I guess we did miss Haniger for a few days. He was out with like a minor injury, but man, we've been missing some guys, including Haniger's bat, Winker's bat. But Raleigh's been out for a while, for a few games now. He did come in to pinch hit on Sunday, but then he was out again. So it seemed like they tried putting him back in. He wasn't quite ready. I read that the Mariners plan to keep him out of the lineup until Wednesday, but he will be available off the bench if needed. So he's still going to have a few more days of recovery. The good news is Julio is back in the lineup tonight, so very excited about that. I think he was just having some lower back soreness, and they're probably just being extra cautious right now, which I'm all for. At the moment, if we look at the standings, like we're still 5 games ahead of Baltimore. Yes, we have dropped to the third wild card spot, but it's pretty, I'm feeling pretty confident that we're going to make the playoffs. And that to me is the top priority. Yes, it would be awesome to have that second or first wild card spot, but even if we have to go in with the third spot, like I'm okay with that. If that means, giving Julio and Raleigh some like cautious days of rest just to be certain that they're going to be healthy for the real last push of the season, like I'm all for that. Like keeping our guys healthy is just got to be the priority right now.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
But at the moment of recording, Toronto is 1.5 games up on us. Tampa Bay a half game up, but it looks like Tampa Bay is probably going to lose. Toronto game I haven't checked in on in about a half hour. That one's still kind of up in the air. But again, they're not. No one's running away with the first wild card spot at the moment. It's still pretty much neck and neck. Baltimore's still trailing. Baltimore and the White Sox are both trailing at about 5 games behind. So not a whole lot has changed really in the last week. It's still Toronto, Tampa Bay, and us in it for the wild card. Let's see. So yeah, on the topic of injuries, the big one, the kind of elephant in the room, if you will, is Geno Suarez being out. The man who is just on fire for the past month, smashing game-winning home runs and just almost, I feel like almost eclipsing Julio a little bit as like the face of our franchise. If even if just for a few days, like man, Geno just seemed to be like the guy who was coming through for us when we needed him the most. And I saw that he has hit 15 home runs since August 1st, which is exactly as much as Aaron Judge has hit since August 1st. So he's just been on a tear. And so it really hurts to see him go to the injured list. And it's looking like, so yeah, he is on the 10-day IL and he has like a small fracture in his finger. So I think it's still a big question mark as to whether or not we will even see him before the playoffs. Of course, we're all hoping for it, but apparently too, if he does return, it's probably just going to be as DH for a while. So that kind of leaves us a without an obvious third baseman. Do you know what the Mariners kind of have planned for third base while Geno is out?
Well, with Lamb, with the pickup of Lamb from the Dodgers, I've seen him at third probably more than anyone lately.
Hmm.
When Geno hasn't been there or when they've made substitutions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I guess Toro's been there the last few days.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's his kind of natural position, or at least I think that's the position he came up playing,
Oh
was
yeah,
third
yeah. I
base.
feel like I do remember here because he was a midseason pickup last year
Mm-hmm.
when there was still a lot of questions about third base this year.
Right, because I mean, when we picked him up, we didn't really know what the deal with Seager was. We didn't know if he was going to be back or not.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like more over at third too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I don't know if he's probably played a couple games there this year
I
or
think he
been
has.
in a few times.
Yeah. So that being said, you just named three guys that have experience and who we feel we can trust at third. That would be Jake Lamb, Abraham Toro, and Dylan Moore. And yet, Matt, here's what I read. I read that the Mariners are thinking of sticking Ty France over there.
That's wacky.
I know. What like I didn't read much about it, but feel like I saw that in a few different places. Like, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about that?
I guess it's just odd because I've never seen him play over there, but I guess I don't hate it because that kind of opens up first for Santana
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know.
Yeah, I don't quite get it. I think it just feels a little risky. Like, France is a great defender, obviously, but I don't know, just like not having the recent experience.
I wonder if it has anything to do with the fact that he's like gotten injured into situations where like a natural first baseman probably wouldn't.
Uh, yeah.
Like moving forward, maybe they're like, we don't want to risk having him get into a collision at first, like he has.
That makes sense. I could see that. He is a very valuable asset. We need him to not be in a first base collision very badly.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what's his? I mean, he was like mostly a second baseman before he came over. Is that right?
I think so. I remember the few times I actually saw him playing for the Padres. I remember seeing him at second base, but I also remember hearing that he had maybe spent some time at third in the past as well. I don't really know what position he came up playing, but yeah, I don't know. It's the big question mark at third base because Geno he's been so solid.
He's held it down. I mean, he's probably started 95% of the games this year at first or at third.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm looking at Baseball Reference, and I guess this isn't actually going to tell me how many games he's started at third. He does have 142 games, which, well, how many have we even played this season? Doing some quick math here. 146. So
Wow.
he's played in all but 4 games if my math is right there. But yeah, man, I think, both of us have been kind of wanting to address this, but when let's step it back to last off season when we picked up Winker and Suarez. The excitement was over Winker for sure. He had put up huge offensive numbers last year, and we'd been looking for another, heavy hitting outfielder, and he was the guy. And Geno Suarez was kind of just tacked on. He didn't have an amazing year last year, but we also did know that he is a huge home run slugger, and holy shit, Geno has been our guy. Winker, as we've already as we've already acknowledged, has not been the guy this year.
Yeah,
But Geno has been the guy who has stepped in and filled Kyle Seager's shoes as well as anyone could have hoped.
definitely. Yeah. I mean, even going back to before the Winker trade, like it was pipe dreams of Bryant. which I gotta say I was pretty on board with. Like I thought Bryant would have been a an excellent addition. Like looking at his, I haven't recently looked at his numbers, but I haven't heard much about him this year. So maybe it's a good thing that that didn't pan out.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think he's had a very good start in Colorado. I'm sure he'll figure it out. But yeah, dude, I was fully on board for Chris Bryant. Like that was my number one guy who I wanted at third base as well.
Yeah,
But in true Jerry style, he went
yeah,
out and got two guys that were on pretty much no one's trade radar, because it wasn't really clear that the Reds were going to liquidate, but then of course they did, and we we cashed in
yeah,
better than anyone else in that liquidation sale. That's for sure. Oh my god.
yeah, yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean, he's been pretty much step for step with what Seager did last year. Um, his play at third has maybe been better than Seager last year.
I think so. In scouring through Baseball Reference earlier, I think I saw that Kyle Seager was about like at totally just kind of middle of the road, not a plus or negative defensive third baseman, but that Geno has been a plus defensive third baseman this year. So step up defensively. We got the numbers in front of us here. I'm comparing Kyle Seager's last year to Geno's this year, and it's kind of shocking how similar they are. Actually, it's more shocking if you look at their career numbers.
Yeah. Well,
Seager's career OPS is 763. Geno's is 801. So Geno's got the leg up there on that average. OPS plus Kyle Seager 112. Eugenio Suarez 111. Nearly identical there. Let's see. Batting average Kyle Seager 251. Eugenio Suarez 250. On base percentage, Kyle Seager 321. Eugenio Suarez has a leg up here, 334. Eugenio Suarez also has a leg up on slugging percentage. So essentially, there's a lot of stats where they look identical, and there's a few where Geno looks a little bit better. And so it's pretty amazing how perfectly Geno has filled Kyle's shoes. We haven't talked about Kyle Seager on this podcast because Kyle Seager's no longer a Mariner, but listeners, you're listening to one of the biggest Kyle Seager fans I've ever met. Oh wow, Freudian slip there, Matt. Would you say Kyle Seager's where is he in your all-time favorite Mariners ranking?
oh, all time. That's tough. I'd have to think about that a bit. But like he in the last 7 years has been my favorite Mariner because he kind of like I got back into baseball like I think it was the 2014 or 2015 season, and that was kind of like his prime.
Mm-hmm.
There was a fun team there in 2015 that had some similarities, I think, to this year's team in its defensive prowess.
Mm-hmm.
He got a gold glove. Oh, 2014. Yeah, he got a gold glove 2014, and I believe that was one of the one of the couple years in the last run of Mariners postseason snubs where they were kind of right there on track to maybe make it, to maybe get to a game 163,
Right.
and it just didn't end up happening.
Mm-hmm.
But that was I fondly remember, seeing him play at third. Like it was very uh, fun to see just like crisp defense and like kind of I don't know, he had like a good he had a very chilled out demeanor at the plate, which was always fun to watch.
Yeah, and I've heard, I can't say that I was following the Mariners for most of Kyle Seager's career, but I have heard that he is just kind of one of the most consistent players of that era. And I'm looking at the batting average here, and it's consistently from his rookie year for 2011 to 2016, he hit over 250. He had a couple down years after that. I guess that's maybe when he started going downhill batting average wise. But
Hmm.
I think at the same time he was probably beefing up a little bit because the OPS in 2019 to 2020 is nearing 800. And defensively too, I think he was just so consistent.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at his games played too, and that stands out as well. I mean, look in 2019, he only played 106 games, but aside from that, and his rookie year, he didn't play less than 154,
Yeah, that's amazing.
which is amazing. And I would imagine, up until his second half of his career, I'm sure almost all of those were starting at third base, which is,
Oh yeah.
in a time when the Mariners were looking for players to plug into positions and keep them there, he was one that they didn't really need to think about.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that had to have felt good. So looking back now, almost a year since Kyle Seager's emotional last game, which, we're all going to remember that forever. Holy shit.
Yeah, what a game.
If you were Jerry, and knowing what we know now about how the 2022 season has played out, does any part of you would any part of you take Kyle Seager in 2022 over Eugenio Suarez? If you were Jerry and you could go back in time,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, it's tough because I just don't like the big thing was making making room in the budget. Like Seager was a big contract because he was an everyday vet. So I'm sure things wouldn't have played out the way they have. Um, Hanging on to Seager, I can understand moving on from that contract. Yeah, I was definitely saddened by that decision,
mhm.
and it was talked about pretty early on last year. Like it wasn't like it was out of nowhere. Um, I think we were all pretty prepared for that to happen.
Oh my God, you're right. I totally blocked out the whole fucking Rotary Club meeting thing.
Yeah.
I totally
Oh, yeah.
forgot about that.
That's right. That was the beginning of last season. So it was like, yeah, it was very much thought thought to be the move early on.
Damn, yeah, there was no question really about it. I mean, for those listeners who don't know, before the start of the 2021 season, there was some like virtual meeting with um, Mariners president of operations or something like that, some guy who got fired, um, and some like Rotary Club. I don't really understand the relationship between the Rotary
It was
Club.
like an annual Rotary Club breakfast or something where they would just talk about stuff in the Mariners organization, but he just went in a whole different direction and was just like airing out all these people and
Right.
like like talking way too much about the what they were going to do this season.
That's right, yeah,
It
because it
was,
was being recorded and then it was made public somehow. And
yeah.
so not only was this guy basically saying, "Oh yeah, there's no way in hell we're extending Kyle Seager," they were also like talking shit on. Weren't they talking shit on like Kikuchi's on how much they had to pay Kikuchi's translator, and like
Yeah.
just like showing a lot of just like disrespect to players from the
I mean, I
ownership.
feel like he was even kind of critical of both Kelenic and Rodriguez,
Hmm.
or kind of like I hope he was very uh he liked that Evan White had signed a contract early,
Right,
and now look where Evan White is, like injured and playing in the minors.
right.
And he was critical of Kelenic and Julio because they were probably going to bet on themselves and not sign until they were like guaranteed some big money.
Exactly. I mean,
And
he
like
was
it's just
basically explaining like an owner's thought process as for service time manipulation, and
right.
was just like acknowledging that. Yeah, it was pretty embarrassing. So yeah, totally forgot that the writing was very much on the wall for Seager at the beginning, and there was some animosity going into this season. But then he stepped up and he got 99 RBIs, and he was a
He got
serious.
no, he got 101.
Okay, he hit 101. That's right.
there was a season like a couple seasons ago where he got 99,
Mm-hmm.
and I think ever since then he wanted to get that 100, and like
Mm-hmm.
to do that in your final season, he hit 35 homers. His average was much lower than his uh his career average,
Mm-hmm.
but he I mean he was like Mr. Clutch.
Yep.
Like in a lot of ways he was like Geno this year, but also like Santana. Kind of like a mix of them because he was the everyday third baseman. He was rock solid and maybe not batting average wise, kind of like Santana,
Mm-hmm.
but like when you needed him to come through with an RBI late or just with runners in scoring position, like he did it.
Right. I think that's where that kind of veteran mindset comes in of just, really being able to find your zen in those high pressure moments. He was really, really skilled at doing that last year, man. And I think, if I were to pose that same question to myself as well, if I could go back and change history, would I take Seager? No, I probably wouldn't, because Suarez has been so great.
Especially looking at the class of free agents,
Mm-hmm.
like it was exciting to think about any of those people coming to the Mariners and if they were willing to play third, go over and play third. Like, I mean, that was the case when the Mariners were in on Trevor Story. I think he was
Right.
slated to be a possibly a third baseman
Mm-hmm.
if he decided to come over.
Right.
Um, Again, like looking at how Suarez is done, like glad that didn't work out too.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just seems like kind of a perfect situation. Aside from Winker, who you wish could have at least gotten close to what he did in his previous years.
Yeah. The only thing I feel a little bit of regret about is that Kyle Seager still missed the playoffs. If last year had ended with us even making it to a one game,
Yeah,
even us making it to a one game wild card playoff, even if we lost that, but if Kyle Seager had been there when we ended the drought, that would have made it that much easier to say goodbye.
yeah, for sure.
I hope Kyle's feeling good about his decision to retire and just be a full time dad. I bet he is.
Oh yeah, he had a good full career here. Unfortunately, no playoff time, but there have been many Mariners now uh, who have had the same fate.
That is true.
Felix among them.
Yeah, it's a tragedy. Matt, thanks for logging in and contributing, as always, to the pod.
Yeah, thank you. What a pleasure.
Yeah, man. All right, we'll talk to you soon. Go
Go
Mariners.
Mariners.
So it is now Wednesday, September 21st. The next day, unfortunately, the Mariners lost their first game to the Oakland Athletics in their series that they just started against them. How you guys feeling right now?
Not great, but I think Willis was mentioning an interesting factoid, or I guess a fun fact, because a factoid's not real, right? A fun fact, or maybe interesting fact, it's not fun. Hey, Willis, this is bad podcasting, but you should go for it. What's your fact?
I'd say an intriguing fact. So among the AL wildcard contenders, the Mariners have the best record against teams with a winning record of all the contenders. But of course, conversely, since all the teams are pretty closely bunched, they have the worst record against teams with losing records of all the contenders. So, it shows that they can beat good teams. I mean, but it's still, you wonder why you can't beat the Athletics right now. And of course, I mean, injuries have a lot to do with it. But I feel like, we got it. The hitting has to step up. It has to come from somewhere. Hopefully, Suarez has been so good, so hopefully he'll be back before the playoffs. But we need, you need more than just one guy as well.
Absolutely. I did hear on the broadcast earlier that Geno is supposed to. They're thinking that he will be back in the lineup as soon as his stint on the IL ends, but just as a DH, because apparently he took some batting practice with a splint on his finger today, and it went fairly well. So we should see him before the playoffs. I did hear that today.
Yeah, and I guess, do you guys think that the Mariners kind of wear themselves out? Because, of course, with the Braves, I think we were talking for the podcast during that game, the one like over a week ago now, but basically the Braves came back and then we managed to win it by the skin of our teeth, bottom of the like ninth inning, and it was a great game. But I'm curious if like those kind of efforts against good teams wear us out, and then we can't play good baseball against not so good teams, and if that's what's going on, right now with the injuries.
It's very possible, especially with a lot of rookies who haven't played 162 games before. At this time of year, it's possible that those really intense games might be a little hard to recover from. I can see that.
And I guess what does that mean if we're going into the playoffs? Obviously, like every game in a playoff game is going to be an intense game, and can we like bounce back, or keep it going all the way through to the World Series win that obviously everyone's expecting, right?
That is the question. But I think we just gotta take a word from Willis. We gotta take solace in the fact that the Mariners can beat those good teams. They can put those wins together. But speaking of the playoffs, I thought we should maybe just take a look at the playoff wildcard landscape at the moment. I have the MLB standings in front of me. Oh wait, those are the standings from yesterday. Let me update it. And despite the Mariners' really terrible last week, not a whole lot has changed in the wildcard picture. It's still Toronto, Seattle, Tampa Bay, all within 2 games of each other. Baltimore is currently 4.5 games back. So I'm feeling okay. Right now. Slumps happen, and I don't think this is going to be a rest of the season slump. Like, there's no way. So, right now with guys being injured, I was saying this to Matt, like, if we got to kind of take it easy to make sure our guys are healthy going into the playoffs, giving Julio and Cal Raleigh those extra days of rest, even if it means we end up losing a few games and maybe it takes them a few games to get back into the swing of things, I still think that's worth it. Where we're at right now, we can kind of afford to slip up a little bit. And I think that as long as they're doing what it takes to get like all those guys healthy at the end of September, at the beginning of October, like I get it. I think it makes the most sense.
So do you guys think that there's any possibility of the Orioles taking our wild card slot? Because you said they were 4.5, 5.5 games behind?
They're 4.5 games behind us and the Rays at the moment. It's not out of the realm of possibility. They could. Orioles have done some amazing things this season.
I would say, baseball, has such a long and rich history that there always are unprecedented collapses. But it would be a shocking collapse from at this point, especially considering who the Mariners are playing the rest of the year. It's not like they're playing the Yankees and the Astros. They're playing. I can't think of better words. So I'll just say, they're playing the Little Sisters of the Poor. Generally, Mariners got to beat up on the A's and the Tigers and whoever else they have left. But what I was thinking, I'm curious what you guys think about. So realistically, in the wild card round, because I'm assuming they're making it. I'm pretty certain about that. There's 3 possible opponents essentially, right? Tampa, Toronto, or Cleveland. Who would you guys rather face, and who would you guys rather not face?
And maybe before answering this, because I'm not quite certain on this, but let me lay out like how I conceptually think of like the wild card slots. And I know that the correct answer to this, Willis. But basically in the American League, right, there are 3 different divisions, and there are going to be 3 different champions of those divisions, and then there are 3 wild card slots as well, right? So the top 2 teams that have like won their division, they don't play in the wild card round, right? But the 3rd team, which will undoubtedly be either the White Sox or the Guardians, will have to play the last wild card slot, and then the first 2 wild card slots play each other. Is that how it works?
Nailed it.
Yeah. So you're pretty much right. I'll just add, first 2 teams get a bye. The remaining division winner will host the last wild card spot for a 3-game series, and then the highest wild card will host the middle wild card for a 3-game series. So I guess that's the other big thing they're doing this year, is rather than it's big break from past postseason histories, rather than alternating games, the home team will host all 3 games for the wild card series. So if, it could be a big advantage to at least getting the top wild card, because that means you can have 3 games at home.
And then how did tickets work for that? Because obviously, like, you have no idea whether or not Seattle's going to make the wild card, and it could be like kind of a last minute thing. Ryan, you were talking about if the Seattle Mariners make the first wild card slot, it would have to be, in order for it to be a game at T-Mobile, you would come up, but like that would have to be like a very much a last minute decision, right?
Yeah, it really would. I mean, the last day of the season is October 10th. The first wildcard game is October 7th. So unless, the Mariners really run away with it and we clinch that first spot like a couple games before the last day of the season, it's going to be a really last minute thing. So yeah, it's going to be a tough trip to make if I do make it, especially if it's that last minute decision.
Does that mean also that tickets go on sale last minute?
I'm pretty sure. I looked into it quite a bit, and I think teams tend to wait until they have clinched their spot to start selling tickets.
Interesting. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's not easy out here for a fan who wants to go to the postseason, but we'll make it happen. But Willis, I'm glad you posed this question. Matt and I were actually talking about this off the record last week. At the moment, it's looking pretty darn certain that we're either going to play Cleveland in Cleveland. We could end up playing Tampa Bay in Tampa Bay, or Toronto in Toronto. We could also end up playing Toronto or Tampa Bay at home. So any of those are possibilities.
So what's your
I guess I was thinking about this, and I think the most fun series to watch would be against the Blue Jays at home, obviously, because that's more fun for us, because we could be there in person. But I do think that there's a little more fire between the Blue Jays and the Mariners this year. I feel, because we swept them, I feel like there is, I don't know, I feel like there's just a little more tension there, and I think it would make for a really good series. I think at the same time, from the perspective of a fan who would like to go to one of the games, I think if we play Toronto at home, there's actually going to be a lot of Canadians coming down and buying up those seats. So I'm rooting for Tampa Bay at Seattle, because I think there will be more seats for Mariners fans. I think we'll be able to take up more space and be louder in the stadium. And I guess, either way, I want to play at home. I want to have that top spot, and I think playing Tampa Bay would mean a better crowd for the Mariners. That's my take.
Okay, I'll give my take. It's maybe similar to yours, but I feel like with the whole Blue Jays thing, my preference is that we play the Blue Jays at home. Because here's the thing, I think we're good against the Blue Jays. We're less good against the Rays. And then I think we're very evenly matched with the Guardians, at least just from the games that I've witnessed this season. And also, if the deal is that the tickets just don't go on sale until we've clenched the first slot, then I don't know, you just jump on the computer right then and refresh. Got to figure out how to trick the system, but I'll be trying to buy tickets. Maybe not the best tickets, but I think I'll be trying to buy tickets for that game. And it'll be fun because the Toronto fans, I don't know, there'll be drama. That'll be good. The other one would be, okay, so that would be my first choice. And then second choice would be probably against the Guardians, honestly, even if we have to go to Cleveland. And then third choice would be, I guess, against the Rays. Probably at home, but it would be cool, if we, I don't know, hit one into the Ray tank or whatever. Willis, is the Ray tank, netted now? There's no possibility of, hitting a Devil Ray with a baseball, right?
I believe, yeah. From what I recall, I haven't watched the game at the Tropicana Dome on television or in person in a long time. But I believe I have heard that it was netted. But when I was living in Florida, it definitely was not netted, and you could go definitely like visiting the Ray Tank at Tropicana, always a memorable experience. I was thinking, Ryan, if you're keen on going to a game, probably you might not even sell out if they're playing in St. Petersburg. I mean, of course, I guess it's a long flight, but probably be the easiest for tickets. But I think in terms of what I want to see, I think the most entertaining matchup would be Cleveland, just because I feel like we're very evenly matched and we played a lot of close games. So that would be like, in terms of just like pure entertainment, not like, oh yeah, like I think we'll win. Cleveland would be good. I don't know. I have a soft spot for Tampa since I lived down there and went to a bunch of games, so I'd enjoy seeing that. Toronto, Toronto, I'd be curious to see. I think the Mariners match up well with the Jays. I guess, if 2 games back with so few games left, I'm not super confident in passing Toronto, but be interesting to see maybe if they ban people from Canada for buying tickets to the game. I know the Seahawks did that for I think it was against the 49ers, maybe. They banned people from California from, buying tickets for that game. So that would be an interesting twist. I'm sure there are some, Mariners fans and, up in BC still. But I think, in terms of a home field advantage and stuff, I think it might be somewhat advantageous to do that. Hopefully not start a diplomatic brouhaha, but, probably worth it regardless.
Well, and that reminds me, you guys, I think the worst, maybe, depending on how you look at it, the worst matchup would be us at Toronto, which if the season ended right now, looking at this, we're in the second spot because Tampa Bay keeps losing. Because if we go play in Toronto, Robbie Ray can't pitch because Robbie Ray is not vaccinated.
Oh, hey, breaking news, Ryan. Not officially confirmed, but all signs point to Canada dropping its vaccine requirements September 30th is the worst theory.
How convenient.
But also, for a longer series, I'd be really worried about that. But if you're throwing out Gilbert, Kirby, and Castillo, I'd be fine with that. I don't see Ray as clearly better than any of those 3.
That's a good point. I don't know if Robbie Ray has any playoff experience, but I guess I would feel a little bit better about him in the playoffs than Gilbert or Kirby, only just by a hair because of his experience. But you're right. Skill wise, is what we've been seeing. Castillo, Gilbert, Kirby are no worse, if not better, than Robbie Ray. So that's a good point.
Yeah, the one thing I'll add with that is, a lot of times, starters will go more old school in the playoffs and throw 120 pitches. Ray has done that a lot. So if Ray is cooking, he could easily throw a complete game. With Gilbert and Kirby, you'd have to, they're not going to do that since they're so young. But, I'm not too worried about the bullpen, but just, that'd be simply 1 point difference.
Does Robbie Ray have playoff experience? I know that he's been around for a minute.
So he has he pitched 2 innings in 2017 versus the Rockies, and then 4 against the Dodgers, and then he pitched 3 innings against the Rays in 2020. So he has a grand total of 9.2 innings over 3 series in the playoffs. So insignificant, I would say, playoff experience.
Than nothing, I think. But anyway, it sounds like we might not even have to worry about that. I did want to just add on to what Willis said, though. I got to agree. I think a Cleveland matchup would be the most fun because I really do like Cleveland. And the only reason I didn't pick that is because there's no way we can play them at home. So if we have to be on the road, I'd pick playing at Cleveland. I think that would be a hell of a series.
And the Mariners have some good history with Cleveland. Cleveland was a team that eliminated us in '95.
Yeah, that's why I've always kind of had a vendetta against the Indians, but now that they're not the Indians, I've really kind of come around to being a little, just maybe a little bit of a Guardians fan. Probably because that's Mona's team, but they've been fun to watch. And like Ben said, they're super similar to us. So, I feel a little kindred spirit there.
What do you think of their logo? I like it, right?
I like it with the baseball and the G.
Yeah, and the G is kind of an old school G, if that makes any sense. It's like a bit of a throwback design, but I think it's good.
For sure. This is kind of out of left field, but I brought it up earlier and forgot to mention, if we're talking about the Orioles' chances of catching us, they're playing the Astros for 4 games, the Red Sox for 4 games, the Yankees for 3, and then the Blue Jays for 3. So I think we can count the Orioles out. Another team I like and would love to see in the postseason, but I don't think we got to be concerned about them. We really just need to be concerned about our own team at the moment. Like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, that is the thing, is a lot of the playoff contenders in the American League are just playing each other, or at least on the wild card slot, or playing much more difficult teams to beat.
That was a pretty nice little postseason preview. But there is something I've been wanting to kind of talk about, even though I don't know much about it. So I'm going to ask you guys if either of you have read or heard anything. And maybe this is old news, but apparently a few weeks ago, Jarred Kelenic removed all mentions of the Seattle Mariners and all pictures of himself in Mariners gear from his social media accounts.
Yeah, no, I definitely saw that as like, I don't know, like a Reddit post. Of course, I don't follow Jarred Kelenic on Twitter. I also don't have Twitter, but I don't know. I also don't really like Jarred Kelenic. Like, I never was on the bandwagon for him. He seems like he's not really a team player. We've talked about it before. And he's just, I don't know, not good at playing baseball either. So he doesn't really have anything going for him, you know?
I think that's a little harsh, Ben.
Okay.
He hasn't been able to figure it out in the major leagues, which is incredibly difficult. And he only just turned 23 in July. And a lot of people I saw online, now that Kelenic's back in the big show, saying he could be a good platoon partner for Haggerty in left field, because Haggerty is Haggerty really, I forget, is Haggerty really good against lefties or righties? I forget. But anyway.
He's good against lefties.
Yeah, so, and then, I mean, and certainly, because I assume we all don't want to see Jesse Winker's defense out in left field unless we have to.
Yeah, I definitely am at a point where I don't really give much of a fuck about seeing Jesse Winker out there. But yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't really heard any talk about bringing Kelenic up for the rest of this season, and I guess I kind of assumed that him removing all those photos was because he is assuming the same thing, that he's just seeing himself, or someone told him, like, you're not going to come up this season, or if he's just telling himself that and he removed all that out of spite. I guess I brought it up because I think a lot of our listeners tune in for all the Jarred Kelenic slander, and we just haven't really slandered him enough lately. So I just brought it up because I think it's just another perfect example of the kind of guy that Jarred Kelenic is. He is a little baby boy.
Yeah, and I guess he's
just bitter, I think.
Yeah,
it's embarrassing.
And the thing with Jesse Winker is, I don't know, he's like pretty slow. He looks really tired all the time now. I don't know what his problem is, but the one thing he does have going for him is that he'll get like very energized and animated. If someone like gets a run or a hit or something, like he'll, go and give high fives and scream, and sometimes like it gets a little too much, like, with the fighting and whatnot. But I feel like he's more of a team player, even though he's like kind of ridiculous. And
yeah. I agree. Jesse Winker gets mad when he strikes out, same as Jarred Kelenic, but there is something about Jesse Winker where, he you can tell he's down on himself, but he still seems to be like supporting the team in certain ways that, like, I don't know if Jarred Kelenic has really figured out. I feel like he's just too self-centered to really be able to provide much of that for his team, and that's not going to help us in the long run unless he can figure it out, unless he can grow up and stop being so concerned about his career and start giving a fuck about the Seattle Mariners. And him taking down the pictures and all mentions of the Seattle Mariners is just that, if I felt like I didn't want him to be a Mariner before, the fact that he's essentially saying with this action that I don't give a fuck about being a Mariner, like, get rid of him. Fuck that behavior. Like, what I'm getting heated up now, actually. I didn't even really think about this very deeply until now, but that gesture just pisses me off. He doesn't give a fuck about being a Mariner.
Well, I got one more thing for you, Ryan, and this is maybe more in the positive news category. So with the Grand Slam the other night and just overall performance, do you think that we should re-sign Carlos Slamtana for next season?
Yeah, I'd say give him a 1-year contract, dude. Yeah, I mean, though I don't think it's ever that simple with Jerry, you know? Like, we don't know Jerry's plan, and so I would love it if we would re-sign Carlos Santana, because that is a fucking clubhouse dude. What a beautiful man. Like, everyone respects him. He's got that playoff experience. Didn't he win a World Series with Cleveland?
I think so, yeah.
I think he's going to be our guy with that serious playoff experience in the dugout this year. So, I mean, yeah, man, I would love to see Carlos Santana back next year, whether it's just as a DH or, I mean, yeah, next year it'll probably mostly be DH too. But I would love that.
I mean, I would be shocked if Santana came back realistically, just because he'll be 37 next year. And I think in baseball, I don't think, I mean, hard to say, but the way, Trader Jerry's is, hard to say and bring back a 37-year-old for a bench spot.
That's a good point. I forgot he was that old. I was thinking he was more like 33 or 34. But hey, man, look at Pujols. Isn't he like 41?
Yeah, I mean,
similar kind of role, right? Just home run hitter.
I mean, Pujols,
and like a clubhouse guy.
I mean, he's an all-time great. But I'll just throw in one final note on Kelenic. So I saw a quote from him when he got promoted that he's like, "Hey, I'm just here to make the team win. I'll even pitch if they want me to pitch. I'll pitch. I'll do anything." So it seems maybe the sentiment. His sentiment seems to have turned around a bit. Perhaps we'll see.
Yeah, I hope so. And I got fired up and I talk a lot of shit about Jarred Kelenic, mostly just because it's fun. But yeah, I mean, I'm also honest. I don't like how he's conducted himself for the most part. But I'm not so cynical that I don't want him to kind of figure some of these things out. So, that is good to hear. That's good to hear. And hopefully the whole taking down of the pictures and whatnot was just, in a moment of frustration, and hopefully it's something he regrets now. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I will definitely be nervous if Kelenic is called up for the playoffs. I would rather see Kyle Lewis, but again, maybe I'm just saying that because I like Kyle Lewis as a person more than I like Jarred Kelenic. It'll be really interesting to see who is playing with us in the playoffs, because I think it's that time of year that guys start playing real hard, and of course I don't want to jinx anything, but I think most teams see injuries in the playoffs and have to call up guys who you were maybe not expecting to see. So really enticing just thinking about who we're going to see in the playoffs, man. But we're at a point where, Willis, you're right, we really can just kind of assume we got that wild card spot, and that's a pretty good place to be.
where the eagles fly.